Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify nation, and if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at file sharing services. We'll be discussing file transfer protocol and server message block, also known as FTP and SMB. This episode is part of my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. One of the main file sharing services we have is FTP, File Transfer Protocol. FTP was developed to allow transferring of files between computers. And in particular, we set up and have a client and a server in this. We have an FTP server that we run on the server. It's an application that runs on the server, and then the client needs to use an FTP client to access that server. You can either push or pull data. You can download or upload data to that server. The first step is we look and we set up our control. We establish a connection. Here we use port 21 to do that connection. Once we have that connection established, we go ahead and we send some commands back and forth to better understand what both ends need and want. Then we establish that connection, and then we establish a separate connection for sending the data, and that is on port 20. Now notice the control port is port 21. That's where we control our connection, we establish it. But when we actually send data, we establish port 20 here. Every time you send data, port 20 is established. Then, once we have that data connection established, we can transfer that data. And like I said, you can either push or pull data. You can push or upload data to the FTP server from your client, or you can pull data. You can download from the server. Server message block is another type of file sharing protocol. What this is it's a client server or a request response file sharing protocol. Servers make their own resources available to the clients on their network. And what happens is there's three functions here of SMBs. SMB, we look at the first function of start, authenticate, and terminate the session. We're going to open that up. We are going to authenticate it, make sure the user has permissions to do that, and then we also terminate it. The second function here is we're going to control file and printer access. SMB allows you to have access to files and folders and also the printer services on your network. And the third function here is allowing an application to send or receive message blocks from a device, allowing that data transfer to happen. This is a little bit different than FTP. SMB establishes long-term connections. These are file shares on your network. FTP is short. As long as you have your client connected, you can transfer files, and then you close out that connection. If you want to resend some files with FTP, you have to reestablish this. SMB, on the other hand, is that folder share. It's always there. You're always connected. Your end user doesn't have to go back and reestablish that connection. SMB allows that end user to access the resources on the server just as if it was on the local host. SMB is the main protocol that Windows file servers use to share their data out. That's why you see on most systems, when you use your Windows client, you have these mapped folders. And these mapped folders connect into servers that run SMB file systems sharing. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on file sharing services. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. There you can find out how to get all these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. In the bottom right is one of my favorite videos that I linked just for you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. Once again, I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.